In the charter that Hamas put together since its inception, it mentioned the word Yahud and Jews, but then in, I think, 2017, you completely turned it on its head and you removed reference to Jews and you kept it to Zionism.
Why are you saying you? Is it because
I have a feeling
you had a hand in this?
No, I had nothing to do with it.
Yeah. So
actually, I criticized the old charter in my book. In my book, Hamas Unwritten Chapters, I have a whole chapter about the Hamas charter. I criticize it and I call for a new charter. We don't have the time to go through what is wrong with it. But when our brothers in Hamas decided to come up with a new political document, they did actually improve on their discourse, which I had been critical of, but they did not go as far as I wanted.
So what were the problems with the charter, in a nutshell?
First of all, the charter considers the conflict in Palestine to be a religious conflict, which is not.
Mm-hmm.
This is a political conflict. It's a colonial project that would not have taken place had it not been for the changes in Europe and in the region that happened in the late 19th century, early 20th century.
Doesn't the new charter accommodate for that? The fact Hamas have mentioned Zionism.
Yes, it's a little bit better. It's a little bit better, but they haven't cancelled the old charter. They came up with a new document that has a better discourse, but that insists that the earlier charter is still intact. How can you? I mean, this is a contradiction in terms.
Right.
Not only that, there is a contradiction within this new document because they say we can never recognize the state of Israel, but we accept a state within 1967 borders. And that's a contradiction in terms. Because
what does that mean, recognition?
Because
maybe
if
it's just recognizing the reality rather than the legality of the state.
Yeah, of course, that's a valid point because Israel exists as a reality, but you don't recognize its legitimacy because Israel was built in my mother's house, on my father's land. How can I accept that sort of, accept it as a legitimate entity? So the document that emerged in 2017, I think, or 16, I forgot the exact date, I think 2017, did not go as far as I would have loved to see Hamas say. Hamas and any Palestinian movement has to have a clear discourse, a clear understanding of what the struggle is about. I know they understand what the struggle is about, but they haven't expressed it correctly.
The emphasis on Islam may be what brings about their support.
Because no. I'm not against emphasizing Islam. I'm a Muslim, of course. I'm proud of Islam. Palestine is a Muslim land. That's not the issue.
But you will isolate the problem to Palestine if you say it's a political issue.
Yes. You see, when you say it's a religious conflict, you give the impression that, and this is the old charter, not the new document. In the old charter, you give the impression that we are having a fight in Palestine because of a conflict between Islam and Judaism. This is not true. Until the advent of Zionism, Jews lived in the Muslim world. We had no problem with them for 14 centuries. And when they were persecuted elsewhere, they came to our countries and we provided them with safe havens.
I actually read a really interesting chronicle of a monk, a Christian monk from, I think, the 7th century, really early on, the time of Banu Umayyah. He was writing Mesopotamia somewhere. I'll put the link maybe in the description. It's in the book Seeing Islam, How Others Saw It. Very old, very kind of old book. And he wrote, these Muslims, they're okay, he's a Christian monk. These Muslims, they're all right, you pay your taxes, they leave you alone. But I have one criticism of the Muslims, and that is they don't persecute the Jews. That was his.
See, the Jews, the Christians, and the followers of other religions are called dhimmis, that we give them the covenant of Allah. We make a covenant with Allah, we enter into a covenant with Allah to protect them, not to harm them. Rasulullah ﷺ himself said, Man ada dhimmiyan faqad adani. Whoever abuses a dhimmi, it is as if he is abusing me. So this is it's not a question of love or hate. It's a question of a religious duty. Our religious duty is to protect them and respect them and secure their rights. Our problem in Palestine is not with the Jews. It's with Zionism, which is a racist ideology, which is a colonial tool used in order to serve the interests of colonial powers.
So would you say that the limit of recognition is the recognition of coexistence with the Jews as a religious people? And surely if you want to make progress on the cause, you need to recognize the state as an entity to some degree. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to speak to it and make compromises and make agreements. I mean, Hamas are speaking about a 10-year truce with Israel, with the Israeli state, with the Zionist state. So there needs to be a level of interaction, a level of direct interaction with them. Or recognition, even if it's for 10 years. It's still recognition of some period.
Yeah, this is a political issue. It's not really a religious issue. There is nothing in Islam that prevents you from talking to your enemy, from negotiating with your enemy. But the issue is, what do you talk about, and what do you negotiate over? Now, take the South African example. Suppose the Zionists in Palestine come to the same conclusion as the apartheid regime in South Africa. The apartheid regime in South Africa came to the conclusion that it was not possible to continue the way they did. They decided that all people who live in South Africa are equal citizens, whether they are black or white, one man, one vote, and let's live in peace and let's coexist. If the Zionists come to this conclusion, which means the dismantlement of the Zionist ideology, we have no problem. That will be the beginning of a peaceful settlement of the problem. But we cannot make peace with people who claim that God gave them the divine right to take my mother's house and my father's land and to establish themselves there while I'm not allowed to go back.
SubhanAllah. So what if somebody argues that's what the Palestinians or the Arabs in Israel should do at the moment, in terms of because I heard some of them, like it's normal for them to boycott elections and not get involved in Israeli politics. Do you think they should work within the system, at least within Israel as the entity that is known as today, and kind of work through the political system, make political parties, campaign and make
third largest party now
in
the last elections?
Now, you see, you're talking about the Palestinians who happen to be Israeli citizens.
Yeah.
Because the majority of the Palestinians are not. The Palestinians of Gaza, who are 2 million, the Palestinians of the West Bank, who are about 3 million, are not Israeli citizens and don't have any rights. They are a population under occupation. Now, the 1.5 or 2 million Palestinians who are Israeli citizens have some rights. Well, actually, what we've seen over the years is that the right wing, which now is becoming the majority political trend in Israel, is seeking to strip those Palestinians of whatever rights they have. Now, the Palestinians in 1948 areas are divided. There are those who believe it is feasible to participate in the system, and they formed something called the Joint List. They came together, the various parties, and they participated in the recent elections. And there are those who believe that it is futile, it won't help, it will do no good, so they stay away. But the entire population are treated as second-class citizens.
So what if they all, is there a project for them to unite and then try and work within the system at least? They're
trying. Of course, I cannot speak on their behalf. I'm only an observer. But I think every one of them is struggling in his own way, even those who join the elections and become members of the Knesset.
So in a way, their working within the system is just to bring the system down?
No. They are a community. That's not their motto. That's not what they say. They participate in the system in order to preserve whatever rights they have and probably improve those rights. They cannot. This system cannot be undone by a minority population that is being persecuted, that is under duress. This racist regime of Zionist Israel will have to be dismantled by a much bigger change in the region.
Unscripted.